All right, we start with the meltdown of a U.S. brokered peace plan for Ukraine. So obviously, if you saw tensions between President Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky reaching a boiling point, and in front of the whole world, the dressing down.
Not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people.
I mean, interesting stuff. I mean, amazing stuff, actually. That happens behind closed doors, never really out in public. But, you know, the response, it kind of derailed what was supposed to be the signing of a peace deal where the U.S. would gain rights to Ukraine's resources in exchange for other things. But for the latest, we go live now to Zach Anders. He's in Kyiv, and we get the reaction from what's happening there, which is going to be pretty interesting, Zach.
Well, Rob, everything we're hearing today from Ukrainians is that they believe President Zelensky's approval rating is just shot through the roof. And it has something to do, I think, a little bit with the cultural values, because when you get out into this part of the world, if you start speaking about anybody that is coming from the same or has the same flag on their shoulders as you, and it feels like the international community or somebody's pushing you into a corner, people bound together. And there's an incredible amount of unity in Ukraine today, so much so that Viktor Poroshenko, the former president who Zelensky kind of pushed into the dustbin here, he has come out in support of Zelensky for the very first time today. This after less than a week ago, President Zelensky's administration sanctioned Poroshenko. So there's a little bit of an idea of how much the Ukrainians have rallied around this moment and have seen an incredible amount of unity here. Now, there was some thought that maybe President Zelensky would take his aircraft and fly south and head to Mar-a-Lago, try and patch things up. Instead, he jetted to London. He's touched down in the UK. He is now meeting right now with UK Prime Minister Starmer. Outside of 10 Downing Street, there was a huge crowd, a lot of applause for Zelensky as he stepped out of the vehicle and into the Prime Minister's office. Right now, they're speaking live. Keir Starmer stating that the United Kingdom supports Ukraine, supports Zelensky. They have their full support. And this is not the only European leader. Nearly every single European nation has stepped up with some kind of statement or letter of support for Ukraine or for Zelensky directly in the last few hours since this event yesterday afternoon. The only European nation that has yet to come out and state anything negative about Zelensky or Ukraine has been Hungary's Viktor Orban. Of course, Moscow celebrating one of the members of the cabinet, the security cabinet in the Kremlin, literally celebrating, posting videos and images online, also tweeting that the insolent pig has finally got his slap down. That's some reaction there from the Kremlin. But again, what we're seeing here today in Ukraine has been very remarkable. The radio stations and television programs are all playing interviews with people on the streets, and just about everybody that you could think of that is coming up to the cameras is saying they support Zelensky in this moment. And this is an interesting time here because his approval and his support base in Ukraine after 3 years of war was starting to slip. But we're seeing a reverse of that trend here as a result of these events in Washington, Rob.
All right, Zach, on the ground in Ukraine. Interesting reaction, obviously what you'd expect over there. Interesting to see what would happen here, though, as the days play out. Joining me now is the former U.S. ambassador to NATO and former special representative for Ukraine, Kurt Volker. So, I mean, have you ever seen anything like that out in the public?
No, I've never seen anything like that. And you have to separate the dynamics of the two people and the way they were communicating from the substance. The substance here was about signing this minerals deal, as you said, getting the U.S. and Ukraine aligned economically, shared interests moving forward. But it devolved very, very quickly because President Zelensky, on the substance, I think, has many good points. His country has been attacked. He is defending the country. And Vladimir Putin is an undeterred killer. He wants to take over the whole country. So he got triggered in that discussion by comments about, well, you know, I trust Putin, diplomacy will work things out. He should never have done that. he should have just let J.D. Vance say what he wanted to say, let the president run the show in his own office, in the Oval Office, go behind closed doors, work things out. But instead, it really blew up and is going to be harder to put back together now. And it's very troubling to see this growing division between Europe and Ukraine on the one hand and the United States on the other. We really need to be working together if we're going to be effective in stopping the war and preventing Putin from starting the next one.
So, Trump was defending his record in preventing wars. He wanted to mediate peace between Ukraine and Russia. Zelensky kind of refusal of a ceasefire, that's what sparked this. We'll show it again for people just tuning in. Yeah. Watch this.
We will never accept just ceasefire. It will not work without security guarantees. You have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
This is like reality TV. You almost can't get enough of it, but it's raw. And, it's kind of coming to a head now, which maybe is the best, So Europe is providing about, 60% of the support, while the U.S. is about 40%, definitely over $120 billion. We heard that, he's in the U.K. today, Zelensky, meeting with the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He's supposed to host a Ukraine security summit tomorrow in London. So let me ask you this, Ambassador. After what we saw in the Oval yesterday, basically being kicked out and now in London, what do you think happens next? How do the diplomats get this back on track, if you will?
Trump's impromptu press conference before we got on Marine One. He said it very clearly that Zelensky needs to want peace, and he needs to be prepared for a ceasefire. And unless he sees that Trump doesn't believe that Zelensky actually wants peace, and that if we support him, then he will continue the war. So Zelensky needs to address that head on. He needs to say nobody wants peace more than Ukraine. He said it in tweets overnight. He needs to say it on camera. And we are prepared for a ceasefire if Vladimir Putin also agrees to a ceasefire. We can talk about other things after that, security assurances, recovery of occupied territory, but we're prepared for a ceasefire and peace. That's what President Trump is looking for. I hope the European leaders in London, when they meet with Zelensky, talk about how to get the U.S. back on track. It is not enough for Europe and Ukraine to stand together and blame Donald Trump. They need to figure out how to get all of us together.
So explain what you know of the minerals deal, right, in which the U.S. would be granted kind of exclusive rights to mine in Ukraine in exchange for continued support of Ukraine in its war effort. What does that do geopolitically? What does that do with the Russia-China alliance? I mean, there's a lot of pieces here. People aren't seeing kind of the bigger picture. So what does all this mean, actually? What would that agreement mean?
Yeah. So first off, just in the specifics, there are a lot of natural resources in Ukraine, rare earth minerals, rare metals, oil, gas, and so forth. This agreement would create a fund. The U.S. would get paid back for military support we've given to Ukraine from that fund. And we would continue to make sure that Ukraine is a sovereign, independent state, and we would now have an interest in making sure that Ukraine is secure because we are a beneficiary of this fund as well. This is what people mean when they say aligning U.S. and Ukrainian interests. I guarantee you that Vladimir Putin was quite alarmed when he saw that this was going to move forward, that the U.S. and Ukraine were now going to have a joint shared interest in Ukraine's sovereignty and independence and security. He's delighted, as you see from the images from the Kremlin. They're delighted that this blew up yesterday. I think we need to get this back on track. What we need to do is show Putin this war will never go his way so we can convince him to stop it. And that in turn demonstrates to Xi that this idea of launching wars and trying to aggrandize your territory or take over people, it doesn't play out for you. You actually end up in a worse position. That's the message we have to be sending to Xi. Right now, that narrative is all in tatters. We have to start putting it back together again.
Real quick, I mean, it's a little thing, but it kind of meant a lot. The White House had asked him, Zelensky, to wear a business suit. A jacket and tie at the very least to go into the Oval Office and for something of this, gravity. He refused. He came in looking as he normally does. What do you make of that? Look, I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, first off, I think he should have, on the first anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, February 24th in 2023, he should have given a speech to the Ukrainian people wearing a tie, because it sends a signal that we're a serious, grown-up country. We're mature. We are moving beyond the initial phases of invasion. That would have been a great message. He didn't do that. Instead, he promised the Ukrainian people, "I will not wear a suit again. I'm going to be in my, military, gear." Until we actually have an end to the war. So that was his commitment to his own people. So he wanted to uphold that commitment. And I just have to observe, too, I saw the press conference with Elon Musk in the Oval Office with the baseball hat and T-shirt, and it's a bit hypocritical to put so much pressure on Zelensky on this.
Well, you're right. I think Elon Musk should have been appropriately just for a cabinet meeting as well. Ambassador Kurt Volker, it is great to have you, and your knowledge is impeccable, so thanks again.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
All right, some breaking news. Can't keep him out. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, he's back. He's just announced he's launching his campaign to become the next mayor of New York City. Cuomo enters the race, which he's already considered the favorite to win in the Democratic field of candidates in a primary, which would be in June. As part of his announcement today, Cuomo says the Big Apple is getting out of control, and these conditions exist not as an act of God, but rather as an act of our political leaders. This is going to be interesting because he's the one that signed all those laws that he's, talking about right now. For more breaking news, head on over to Newsmax.com. All right, next, the very latest from the Vatican on the Pope's health. Plus, insight from a doctor who works for the church. Stay tuned. This is Saturday Agenda.